Diocletian is known for restoring efficient government to the empire. After the near anarchy of the 3rd century, he rose through the ranks of the Roman army and became an army commander in Moesia. In 284, he became the emperor of the Roman Empire after defeating his rival, Carinus. During his reign, Diocletian faced many challenges, including financial and military problems, and attacks along the Danube and Rhine rivers and in the eastern provinces. To address these issues, he implemented several reforms, including the establishment of the Tetrarchy, a system of government in which 2 senior emperors, the Augusti, who ruled the eastern and western halves of the empire, and 2 junior emperors, the Caesars, who assisted them. Diocletian also reorganized the administration of the empire, introduced new taxes and persecuted Christians. In 305, he did an unprecedented act by abdicating and retiring. Before we continue the video, I want to let you know that I've created a Patreon site and opened up YouTube memberships. Creating these videos takes a lot of time and effort, so if you're willing and have the means to support the channel, that would be much appreciated. For those of you who have already signed up, my sincerest thank you. Early life. Diocletian's early life remains shrouded in mystery, with only one certainty: his birth on the 22nd of December. The details of his first 40 years are obscure and reliant on scant and disputed evidence. Scholars estimate his birth to be in the mid-240s, just before Rome's momentous yet troubled 1000th birthday in 248. He hails from Dalmatia, most likely Salona, which later became his chosen retirement haven. Originally known as Gaius Valerius Diocles, his background is subject to conflicting traditions. Some believe he was the freed slave of a senator named Anulinus, while others claim his father was a scribe or clerk, making the latter the more plausible. The rise of Pertinax, the son of a former slave, to become emperor in 193 demonstrated that such a remarkable ascent was possible. Diocletian's career, shaped by the changing circumstances of the mid-3rd century, was primarily military, serving under Claudius II, Aurelian, and Probus. Circa 268 to 282 AD, he likely held positions such as prefect of the first cohort of Galatians, military tribune of Legio VII Gemina in Spain, and prefect of a cohort of Dardanians, and likely many more positions in the army, but very little can be said with any degree of certainty. According to one legend, he might have even been in Gaul, where a Druid prophetess foretold his imperial destiny. Diocletian married Prisca, about whom little is known except that she gave birth to their only child, Valeria. By 282, he had risen to the position of commander of the Protectores, a corps of staff officers forming the personal bodyguard around Emperor Carus, with whom he accompanied on the Mesopotamian campaign. Diocletians Accession. Carus, seemingly fortunate at first, ascended the throne as emperor with 2 sons whom he intended to share power with. Initial success smiled upon him in Mesopotamia. However, his fate soon took a dark turn, and Carus and his family met their demise in mysterious circumstances. In 282, Carus's life was claimed by a sudden lightning strike, as the story goes. Numerianus, Carus's son, was hailed emperor and returned slowly with his army from the Persian campaign. He traveled in a litter with closely drawn curtains to protect his infected eyes, making very few public appearances. As the army approached Nicomedia in November 284, a putrid smell emanated from the litter, revealing the emperor's lifeless body. At this moment, Diocletian was hailed as the new emperor on the 20th of November. His first act was to declare his innocence in Numerianus's death, placing the blame on Numerianus's father-in-law, the Praetorian prefect Aper, whom he swiftly struck down with his own sword. The question arose whether Diocletian's actions were those of a guilty man seeking to shift blame or merely an attempt to deflect unfounded suspicions. Aper's role as an assassin seemed unlikely, leaving uncertainty surrounding the true circumstances of Numerianus's demise. Nevertheless, Diocletian's decisive actions prevailed over Aper's indecision. The new emperor assumed a more grandiose title, Gaius Valerius Diocletianus, embracing a Latin heritage. However, another legitimate emperor, Carinus, still remained in the west. Carus had left Carinus in charge of the Rhine frontier before embarking on his Persian campaign. Carinus, depicted as a conventional tyrant, faced numerous challenges during his reign, including a major fire in the Roman Forum and pretenders vying for power. As Diocletian advanced across the Balkans, Carinus confronted him, and their armies clashed at the river Margus near Viminacium. Despite appearing to gain the upper hand initially, Carinus fell victim to an aggrieved officer who assassinated him, leaving Diocletian in unchallenged control of the empire. Diocletian adopted a policy of conciliation, incorporating Carinus's comitatus into his administration and retaining Carinus's praetorian prefect, Aristobulus. In a remarkable gesture, Diocletian retrospectively shared the consulship of 285 with Aristobulus, effectively stepping into the deceased Carinus' place. Aristobulus continued to enjoy Diocletian's favor, later assuming roles as proconsul of Africa and urban prefect. Moreover, Diocletian offered a general amnesty, fostering an atmosphere of reconciliation and stability. The Dyarchy. Diocletian's advance into northern Italy didn't extend to formal possession of Rome itself, a strategic decision considering it would be an unnecessary distraction. Instead, he made a crucial move in the summer of 285 by appointing Maximian, his comrade in arms and fellow Danubian, as his Caesar, creating what modern scholars term the Dyarchy. This choice proved to be promising despite the negative portrayals of Maximian as a conventional tyrant. Their unswerving loyalty to each other formed the bedrock of a strong imperial brotherhood, ensuring almost 2 decades of stability in the empire. Diocletian and Maximian symbolized their bond by adopting each other's nomen, further cementing their relationship. Diocletian hence took on the name Gaius Aurelius Valerius Diocletianus Jovius, and Maximian added Diocletian's name to become Gaius Aurelius Valerius Maximianus Herculeus. The titles Jovius and Herculeus they assumed, associated with Jupiter and Hercules, exemplified their respective roles in the empire. Diocletian devised policies and issued commands, like the king of gods, while Maximian executed them diligently. Maximian was dispatched to Gaul to suppress the Bagaudae insurgents and was subsequently elevated to the rank of Augustus on the 1st of April in 286. Meanwhile, Carausius, a key lieutenant of Maximian, declared himself emperor, taking control of Britain and northern Gaul. Maximian's attempts to subdue him proved ineffective as he was preoccupied with German tribes and had to deal with an invasion from across the Rhine. Diocletian, on the other hand, campaigned against the Sarmatians on the Danube in 285 and later traveled through Syria and Palestine, engaging in diplomatic affairs with senior rabbis and dealing with the Persians. He conducted a campaign against the Saraceni in the Syrian desert. In 288, he found himself back on the Danube, and Diocletian advanced into Germania via Rhaetia, while Maximian launched his campaign from Mainz. As they proceeded, both leaders systematically burned crops and food supplies, devastating the Germans' means of sustenance. Their conquest expanded the empire's territory and enabled Maximian to continue his preparations against Carausius without further interference. Diocletian and Maximian met in Mediolanum in December 290, accompanied by a significant gathering including senators who traveled from Rome. After their meeting, Maximian returned to Augusta Treverorum, and Diocletian headed back to Sirmium. Throughout their reign, the bond between Diocletian and Maximian provided the foundation for stable governance, enabling Diocletian to implement a series of crucial reforms that would characterize the late Roman state. The Tetrarchy. Diocletian soon realized that relying on just one colleague was inadequate, especially with the challenges posed by Carausius in Britain and the Channel coast of Gaul, which had seen increased pirate activity in the last decades. The Imperial College needed expansion to maintain stability and handle potential threats more effectively. Since Diocletian had no male heir and Maximian's son, Maxentius, was still young, the solution was to use marriage as a means of electing suitable candidates into the imperial college while preserving dynastic coherence. Diocletian selected Constantius and Galerius, both of Illyrian origin with proven military prowess. Constantius married Maximian's daughter, Theodora, while Galerius married Diocletian's daughter, Valeria. On the 1st of March of 293, both men were elevated to the rank of Caesar, becoming juniors and assistants to their Augusti in a hierarchical imperial college. The Tetrarchy, or Rule of Four, was thus established with the hope of securing a predetermined succession plan for the future. Diocletian's approach was seen as meritocratic and pragmatic, as he made use of the relatives that chance had provided, rather than deliberately seeking anti-dynastic choices. The distinction between appointing sons-in-law as new Caesars, instead of selecting existing sons-in-law for the role, significantly influenced the perception of his policy. Historically, emperors had favored sons as heirs whenever possible, with some notable exceptions, and only the absence of sons led to the adoption of outsiders. Diocletian's choices can be seen as a practical approach to succession, working with the relatives available rather than imposing a rigid anti-dynastic strategy. The expanded imperial college proved its worth as Constantius, one of the Caesars, effectively dealt with Carausius in Gaul. Carausius's failure led to his assassination and replacement by Electus, who was also swiftly defeated by Constantius in a seaborne invasion of Britain in 296. London was saved from being sacked by the Franks due to Constantius's prompt action. His victory was immortalized on a medallion with the legend, "Restorer of the Eternal Light." Meanwhile, Maximian embarked on an imperial visit to Spain in 296, successfully suppressing a dangerous tribal confederation, the Quinquegentiani, before triumphantly returning to Rome in 299. Diocletian focused on the Danube frontier from Sirmium and sent Galerius east to address a revolt in the Thebaid and confront the ambitious Narses, the new king of Persia. Galerius' campaign led to a legendary victory, securing a significant portion of northern Mesopotamia for the Roman Empire and establishing peace with Persia for the next 40 years. As Galerius moved into Armenia, news of a usurper named Domitius Domitianus, who had seized much of Egypt, reached Diocletian. He first waited for signs of success from Galerius before venturing to reoccupy the rebel areas, which he accomplished before Galerius entered Ctesiphon. Domitianus died in December 297, by which time Diocletian had secured control of the Egyptian countryside. Alexandria, whose defense was organized under Domitianus's former corrector, Aurelius Achillius, held out probably until March 298, and later that year, a triumphal column was erected in Alexandria to honor Diocletian, known as Pompey's Pillar. Diocletian's victories and settlement of affairs in Egypt culminated in his issuance of the famous Prices Edict of 301 from Antioch. The military successes in Germany, Sarmatia, Persia, Britain, Carpi, Armenia, Media, and Adiabene showcased the empire's strength and power and fostered a profound sense of peace and confidence. With the Rhine and Danube frontiers under active supervision, the empire experienced a period of relative stability and calm, thanks to the strategic expansion of the imperial college and the successful military campaigns led by the Tetrarchs. A stability the Roman state had not experienced for the last 5 decades. The reforms. The first half of the 3rd century presented a challenging period marked by war, plague, inflation, economic collapse, and the decline of cities. There was uncertainty about whether these issues constituted a single, overarching crisis affecting the entire empire. The Augustan Principate structures, still functioning during the Severan period, were gradually dismantled amidst external invasions and internal usurpations. Formidable external enemies, such as tribal formations along the Rhine and Danube, and ambitious Persian kings in the east, posed significant threats. The emperor became vulnerable to overthrow, as the army frequently raised usurpers seeking military effectiveness and generous rewards. The empire reached its nadir after Valerian's humiliating capture by Persian king Shapur I, resulting in its division into three parts, with Gallienus controlling only the central core. A resurgence began with the emergence of Illyrian soldier emperors from less wealthy provinces, including Diocletian. These soldier emperors reunited the empire in 268, but relinquished vulnerable territories like Dacia. Diocletian, becoming emperor amid this challenging backdrop, spearheaded reforms shaping the late Roman state during his extended 20-year reign. His approach combined cautious foresight with daring decisiveness, seeking counsel from divine sources and advisors. Although not seeing himself as a radical reformer, Diocletian envisioned his role as a conservator and restorer of the empire's strength and stability. The emperor's insecurity during the 3rd century crisis prompted significant changes in the office. Diocletian's major innovation was the introduction of a realistic collegiate government, the First Tetrarchy, with 2 Augusti and 2 Caesars. This arrangement aimed to address multiple crises and resolve the question of succession in advance. Within the College of Four, Diocletian retained seniority, and although each tetrarch had authority in their sphere, Diocletian could intervene anywhere. His enactments, including the persecution of Christians, were often enforced by his colleagues. Compliance, however, was challenging to monitor, leading to occasional deception. Despite this, Diocletian's prestige kept the college harmonious and cooperative during years of reform. Diocletian's reign witnessed a shift in imperial manners, departing from the affected civilitas of Augustus to embrace a more grandiose and ceremonial display. The imperial attire, subjects' prostration, and the Dominus Noster title set him apart as the supreme ruler. While the origins of these innovations are difficult to attribute specifically to Diocletian, his extended reign allowed existing trends to solidify. Despite changes in protocol, the tetrarchs remained visible and accessible, constantly on the move. Diocletian was open to receiving petitions and issued thousands of rescripts even to those of lower status. The formal entry into cities, the Adventus ceremony, was frequently repeated, drawing large crowds eager to catch a glimpse of the imperial entourage. The palace's inner space was tightly controlled, exemplifying limited public access to imperial business, as seen in Lactantius's account of Diocletian's final months. Finally, there was a shift in imperial iconography, with coin depictions reflecting a severe military appearance and less individualized portrayals, as seen in the famous porphyry group of the tetrarchs hugging in Venice. In practice, the seat of government accompanied the emperor's peripatetic lifestyle, and the tetrarchs traveled with a comitatus that encompassed all the necessary apparatus for governance. Constantine referred to officials within the comitatus as individuals familiar with the dust and toil of the camp. Temporary seats of the roving government evolved into regular imperial residences, transforming certain strategically positioned cities into alternative capitals with monumental buildings. These tetrarchic capitals included Trier, Milan, Sirmium, Nicomedia. These new capitals were located closer to the empire's frontiers and further away from Rome, symbolizing the decreased administrative importance of Rome. These cities still exhibit monumental remains from this period, especially Thessalonica, Trier, and even Diocletian's retirement home at Salona. With the multiplication of emperors and capitals came the multiplication of the imperial comitatus, resembling each other in staffing. Most chief officials were now exclusively of equestrian rank. Praetorian prefects, accompanying each Augustus, acted as a college with wide-ranging powers. The civil service, no longer dominated by the familia Caesaris, featured soldiers seconded as administrators, giving it a military appearance. Officials serving the emperor often adopted his nomen, such as Valerius or Flavius, under Constantine. The provinces underwent extensive reorganization as well, known as being sliced and diced, with the creation of 12 dioceses around 293. This aimed for greater efficiency and control, concentrating governors on law and taxation matters in smaller provinces. The new structures influenced financial hierarchies, leading to detailed regulation of seniority and remuneration. Despite criticism, the bureaucracy provided stability after the mid-3rd century turbulence. Lactantius accused Diocletian of multiplying the armies, while Zosimus praised him for strengthening frontier defenses. The overall size of the army increased, with units under equestrian-ranked duces. Military operations involved forces from regular legions and auxilia, allowing for multiple campaigns or cooperative actions. Efforts were made to fortify frontier defenses, as seen in inscriptions from the lower Danube forts and the construction of the Strata Diocletiana. The Strata Diocletiana was a significant Roman military road, built during its namesake's reign. It aimed to facilitate rapid troop and supply movements across the eastern frontier, stretching from the Euphrates River to the Red Sea. Along its route, the road featured fortresses and watchtowers to protect and support Roman soldiers. Strategically important, the Strata Diocletiana helped control movement and maintain security against threats like the Sasanian Empire and nomadic tribes. This road exemplifies Diocletian's efforts to fortify the empire's borders and stabilize its vast territories during a challenging period. Senators' influence declined in significance during Diocletian's reign, with equestrian military officers and governors gaining prominence, a trend that had been going on for the last century. The emperors became more distant from the Senate, and senators mainly focused on leisure, holding traditional magistracies or administrative posts. The praefectus urbi gained significance in the emperor's absence. The financial reforms. Upon Diocletian's ascent, the Roman Empire faced financial turmoil with a debased coinage. Taxes levied in increasingly worthless currency became less significant, leading to an unpredictable and inconsistent financial system. Diocletian aimed to address this chaos by introducing the diocesan structure, establishing mints in each diocese, strategically placed near frontiers or communication routes. State factories were created for military equipment, clothing, and requisitioned goods, including grain. Revitalizing the 5-year census cycle, Diocletian expanded coverage, assessed land wealth and rural population size, and exempted most urban areas from taxes. The new tax system, iugatio vel capitatio, utilized notional units like iuga for land and capita for individuals, calculated to determine total taxes for cities or villages. Central government officials became closely involved in local conditions through this process. Diocletian also attempted to stabilize the currency through a coinage reform in the mid-290s, introducing a more plentiful gold coin, aureus, and a true silver coin, argentius. However, the scarcity of precious metals led to even donatives being paid in base metal. In 301, Diocletian implemented the price edict, setting price ceilings for goods and services. Despite its ambitious goals, the edict faced challenges in enforcement, resulting in continued inflation. Diocletian's measures, though well-intentioned, encountered shortcomings. The Prices Edict failed to control inflation and was eventually repealed or allowed to lapse. Lactantius criticized Diocletian's economic analysis, highlighting its flaws and the failure of the bold measures. Economic issues persisted, and inscribed copies of the Prices Edict served as reminders of imperial overreach. The cities. During the prosperous years of the Principate, cities within the Roman Empire were adorned with magnificent monuments, thanks to the competitive beneficence of local elites. However, the 3rd century crisis led to a reduction in such activities. The wealthiest locals had been absorbed into the imperial aristocracy, making local office holding less attractive. Many sought exemptions and immunities, leading to a constant theme in petitions presented to Diocletian. Diocletians faced numerous requests for benefits and exemptions, with people claiming special treatment based on their occupation, age, illness, or other grounds. While some were successful, Diocletian found himself refusing benefits in many cases. Those appointed to local office, or the local curia, were classified as honestiores, the better sort, entitled to more lenient treatment than the humiliores, the lower classes, under the otherwise strict criminal justice system. Galerius was noted for fostering the increase in the number of new cities, granting civic status to places like Timandus and Heraclea Sintica. Diocletian encouraged development in Syria and Palestine, including the construction of granaries and reservoirs. However, Diocletian's own reforms undermined the desirability of local office holding, turning councillors into unpaid tax collectors with personal liability for shortfalls. The civic duties demanded of the population increased, and there was a tendency towards hereditary compulsion at all levels. Provincial governors took over the control of the urban fabric, stifling any independence of maneuver that might have allowed a revival of the most prosperous years of the Principate. Cities faced restrictions, such as being told they couldn't fund festivals before repairing defensive walls, turning such directives into requirements. A stark illustration of Diocletian's attitude towards cities occurred in 303 AD, when the city council of Antioch took the initiative to raise forces and defeat an attempted usurpation. Instead of approval, the council faced execution for their presumptuous interference. Despite such measures, the claustrophobic surveillance of local government was not always effective, as evidenced by instances where locals resisted even Diocletian's imminent arrival. Legal matters. Caracalla's Constitutio Antoniniana in 212 AD granted Roman citizenship to a significant portion of the empire's free population, but this broad inclusion did not automatically ensure familiarity with Latin or Roman law. Modestinus, a jurist, wrote about guardian duties in Greek, reflecting the preference for Greek in certain regions. However, Latin gained traction in the East, particularly due to the presence of law schools, such as the one in Beirut. The rise of Illyrian emperors, not necessarily from the traditional Greek literary elite, further contributed to the acceptance of Latin. Diocletian, based in Nicomedia within a Greek cultural environment, promoted Latin as the administrative language and recruited Lactantius to teach Latin rhetoric. Despite recruitment challenges, Diocletian valued the council of experienced jurists, such as the Master of Petitions, who played a crucial role in handling legal disputes brought to the emperor's attention during his travels across the provinces. Between 285 and 295, 3 notable jurists served as Masters of Petitions, composing replies, rescripts, in the emperor's names. The rescripts, although publicly posted, had limited circulation, leading to the publication of systematic works like the Gregorian Code in 292, covering rescripts from Hadrian to 291. This marked a shift from scrolls to a single codex. Hermogenianus followed suit with the Hermogenian Code in 295, containing rescripts from 293 and 294. These codes were considered semi-official and signified the transition from juristic to imperial control over legal interpretation. The Diocletianic codes marked the end of an era of innovative juristic writing, providing governors, advocates, and citizens with authoritative legal interpretations for reference and consultation. Religious matters. Diocletian adhered to a conservative religious approach, relying on traditional Roman beliefs and positioning himself, along with Maximian, as divine rulers with Jupiter and Hercules as their respective tutelary deities. This ideology was reflected on coinage and in designations for military units, provinces, and buildings. Diocletian's legal rulings emphasized traditional Roman values, connecting ancient virtues to divine favor, as seen in his 295 edict denouncing incestuous marriages. Initially, Christians enjoyed relative acceptance, but Diocletian's anxieties about the future led to a cautious approach and eventually a severe persecution of Christians. This persecution included the purge of Christian soldiers in 299 AD, demolitions of churches, arrests of clergy, and demands for universal sacrifice. Despite the intense persecution, the Christian church survived, and Diocletian's attempt to eradicate it was not entirely successful. The persecution gradually waned and ended in 313 AD, marking the conclusion of the Great Persecution. The persecution caused schisms among Christians, particularly the Donatist dispute in Africa, causing the lapsed controversy. While the government pursued its ambitions through persecution, it encountered limitations, as the top-down approach lacked broad popular support and failed to deter the resilient Christian community. In summary, Diocletian's conservative religious stance, legal rulings, and persecution of Christians illustrate both the ambitions and limits of late antique governance. Abdication. In the final phase of Diocletian's reign, he undertook a unique political experiment by abdicating, a move unprecedented in the history of the Principate. But the concept of abdication had surfaced earlier, but never been executed. In early winter of 303, Diocletian entered Rome to celebrate his 20th anniversary as emperor, the 10th anniversary of the Tetrarchy. He soon grew frustrated with the city's lack of respect for his authority and left for the north on the 20th of December that year, performing his 9th consulate ceremonies in Ravenna on the 1st of January 304. After a campaign against the Carpi, Diocletian fell ill and returned to Nicomedia, where he collapsed during a public ceremony on the 20th of November 304. Rumors of his death spread, but were dispelled when he reappeared in March of 305, looking frail. Galerius arrived later, allegedly pressuring Diocletian to abdicate and restructure the Tetrarchy. On the 1st of May 305, Diocletian publicly announced his and his senior imperial colleague, Maximian's, abdication. Their Caesars, Galerius and Constantius, were both raised to the rank of Augustus, and two new Caesars were appointed, Maximinus Daza, who was Caesar to Galerius, and Valerius Severus, who was Caesar to Constantius. These four formed the second Tetrarchy. However, the system broke down very quickly thereafter. Death of Diocles. Following his abdication, Diocletian retired to the Grand Palace at Split on the Adriatic, near his birthplace of Salona. It's unclear if the palace was purpose-built or adapted from existing structures. The palace featured a small temple dedicated to Jupiter, Diocletian's favored deity, and a magnificent mausoleum that now serves as the cathedral. From his retreat, Diocletian observed the unraveling of the carefully planned succession with bitterness. While the initial establishment of the new order seemed impressive, until the premature death of Constantius and his sons' own proclamation in 306 to the imperial throne. That was, of course, Constantine. Wars, usurpations, and intrigues further weakened Galerius's control over the imperial college. In an attempt to restore order, Galerius summoned Diocletian to a conference at Carnuntum in November 308. Maximian, who had reclaimed power, tried to convince Diocletian to re-establish their previous partnership, but Diocletian refused, recognizing the impossibility of turning back time. Despite Diocletian's efforts, Galerius couldn't regain full control and died in agony and disappointment in May 311. By now, Diocletian was the sole surviving member of the First Tetrarchy, but he faced indignities as his statues and inscriptions were erased in association with the disgraced Maximian. He was powerless to prevent his daughter Valeria's unwanted marriage plans with Licinius and Maximinus. Diocletian likely died on December 3, 312 AD in his palace at Split and was interred in the mausoleum. Despite being mentioned by Eutropius as a private individual among the gods, there was no contemporary formal recognition of his divinization, with no consecration coinage issued for him. In a final blow, Diocletian's daughter and wife were executed by Licinius in the summer of 314 AD, marking a tragic end for the family of a once powerful and successful ruler. Final thoughts. Diocletian's reign as Emperor of Rome was a mixed bag of successes and failures. After his abdication, the style of cooperative collegiate rule he tried to maintain fell into disaster, and the succession issue remained unresolved. While Diocletian's model for long-term collegiate rule may not have been reliable, he demonstrated that it was possible, and his skilled management allowed it to work for 2 decades, fostering military success and enabling significant administrative reforms and a degree of stability to the empire. The character of Diocletian remains enigmatic, with conflicting evidence. He was portrayed as a grim soldier, a petty bureaucrat, a Roman chauvinist, and a superstitious persecutor. While some of these aspects may hold some truth, they may not offer a complete and fair assessment. Lactantius provides a better view of Diocletian as a ruler, acknowledging the success of his regime until 303, facilitated by his strong ties with Maximian. Though Diocletian may have sought scapegoats for failures, he also demonstrated a consultative and cautious style, making thoughtful choices in appointing colleagues and officials. Diocletian's rule saw some overreach, exemplified by ambitious enactments aimed at regulating prices and beliefs. This idealistic approach, perhaps influenced by Galerius, did not always match the reality of enforcement. Nonetheless, Diocletian's extensive efforts across multiple areas did lead to significant successes. His reforms laid the foundation for the subsequent new empire of Diocletian and Constantine, with Constantine building on many of his predecessors' initiatives. In summary, Diocletian's reign was a complex one, marked by both achievements and challenges. While his model of cooperative rule faced difficulties, his skillful leadership allowed it to work effectively for a time. His character may be elusive, but his cautious and consultative approach to governance contributed to the success of many of his reforms. Despite some ambitious undertakings, Diocletian's legacy endured and served as a basis for the transformation of the Roman Empire under Constantine. Thanks for watching the video to the end. Remember to check out our Patreon site if you want to support the work we do here on the channel, or sign up for a YouTube membership. I'm not sure how to split the next series of videos. Should we do one video on each tetrarch, like one on Galerius, Maximian, and Licinus? Or should I go straight to Constantine and make that video a bit longer? Let me know what you want to see.